Demo Disc 13 of the official UK PlayStation magazine was a very important one for me, as it was among the first two demo CDs that I'd ever got to witness during my first ever experience with the PlayStation, down at a mate's house in Christmas of 1996. The other disc would have come from the Demo 1 CD that would have come with the PlayStation console itself, that featured games like Wipeout, Jumping Flash, Loaded, among a few others. But this one was particularly interesting, as while there's only 4 games on this disc, they were all developed and released by Psygnosis, and many of these games in question will go on to be among my favourite ever on the console. This left an impact like no other, and I just want to share it here, as they left a massive impact on me as a gamer moving forward with the PlayStation and just with video games in general, as the games here, like the other demo disc, really stood out and just looked so realistic that I could not believe what I was seeing. The rolling video demo of Destruction Derby 2 was an interesting one, as I had literally just come off the back of playing the Demo 1 CD and I got to play the first Destruction Derby on it, and I thought it was awesome being able to play in the arena and smashing the hell out of everything on the screen. The crash and damage physics were very realistic, so when I got to see this video demo I was excited, although I will admit, because I still wasn't really used to the PlayStation, I didn't realise it was a video demo. I assumed that it was just something that you could actually play yourself. That was the one thing I will say that I always had an issue with the magazines, especially in the earlier months or years of the magazines that were released, is that the demos themselves, when they were on the CD, they didn't often tell you that they were just a video demo, so you couldn't tell whether they were playable or not. The only way to really know that is if you had to look through the last few pages of the magazine itself, and it would go over some of the games on the disc, and then it would tell you that it was a rolling demo or a video, and then it would also let you know of which games were playable. But if you just popped in the CD without looking at the magazine, you wouldn't really know. Now that would change in later versions of the magazine itself, but still I thought it was very cool. The one thing I will say when I went to boot this demo up is that the sound, because of the roars of the exhaust and the announcer in the beginning, it was very loud, so if you had your TV up even anywhere decent with volume, it would nearly blow your ears off. But it was very cool, because after having played the original first game and then looking at the video of this here, even though you knew it was a sequel, it just looked so different, and I couldn't believe the frantic nature of it. It was just pandemonium. So much in a way that I was enjoying it that I ended up watching the video quite a few times after that, even into the next day. I would boot the disc up, play through the games again, spend ages playing the games and just replaying them, but I would often find myself just watching the video over again and studying it and trying to understand it. And because I was so new to the realm of everything that was happening, I was just excited to play the game at some point, and I was hoping that I could very well do so, and I literally would get that opportunity a couple of months later. And I have to say, yeah, I was impressed. I was intimidated at first by how quick and how fast it was, and even how difficult it is, but with a bit of time, effort and patience, for me it's easily one of the best racing games I've ever played on the PlayStation. It's so much fun, frantic. It is one of the best soundtracks in video games on the PlayStation also, so that warrants a go in all respects. I definitely recommend it. The Monster Trucks demo, I'll have to admit, while it probably isn't the best game that's on this disc, I thought it to be very interesting and intriguing, because it was different from your typical racers. The fact that you could play as monster trucks, racing pretty much over different environments, off-road, different types of terrain, and you had the suspension physics that let you just go crazy, where you could do massive jumps, and you could even hear the sound effects as well. I thought it was very cool. Now this demo in particular, because it's a very early build of the game, and it was one of the first demos to ever be released during its production, it's still not finished. The one thing you'll notice, and it's the same even with the final game, is that the pop-up in the environments that show up as you're playing is apparent. It's definitely one of the most noticeable aspects about this game, or any game on the PlayStation, is the severe amount of pop-up that appears on screen as you're driving around. But I thought it was very cool. It was very fast paced. The handling physics, while they were a bit more twitchy compared to other racing games that were on the CD itself, it took a bit of getting used to, even with changing the views. You were trying to get used to the first person view, which was definitely tricky, so I would usually just pick what you see here behind the truck itself. I found that easier to manage. But for the first few attempts, I was literally just playing the demo and just rallying around the track pretty much, because I didn't realise that you could venture outside of the track. And even my mate at the time that had the demo, he never really tried that all that much, and he wasn't even sure how far you could go either. So I thought to myself, right, I'll give it a go and see how far you could get. Now you're only timed, but once you manage to make it over certain parts of the cliff, you could find them on the track and you could drive over the wall, you could say, and then it would take you out onto one of the open world environments that surrounds the track itself. And this part would become more playable, especially with the full game, in some of the game modes where you could do more open world events with doing like checkpoint races and so forth. So that was pretty cool. Because the demo was timed, you found yourself literally just trying to explore and trying to get as far as you could in the time frame that you had, so you were just left exploring. The one thing that I really thought was cool from that point is it was also one of the first demos, like I said, that I played, but it was also one of the first instances that you could essentially in some ways break the game, where you could find things that you didn't think were there, and in many ways you were finding hidden secrets just through exploration and just trying something different. So by trying to break the game in some shape or form, you found out a lot of cool stuff, even if it was only for a short time. And the fact is that it was timed. You just wanted to pretty much gorge on the experience, so you'd find yourself playing the demo over and over again, just trying to see what else you could find or break. But that's the one thing I loved about these early demos, is that allowed you to do that, and this was one of the first examples of that happening for me. That's why it does hold a special place, because it was very, very cool. While not the best racer, but it definitely presented something different. What can I say about Wipeout 2097 that you pretty much don't already know? One of the best racing games ever on the PlayStation. Graphically it looks stunning, the vibe, the style around it is just on another level. The soundtrack is among the best ever seen in video games. Just the whole presence and the whole idea behind it and the concept is just crazy. And for me it was a double whammy, because I came to play this alongside of playing the first Wipeout game, so you were just getting familiar with one version and then instantly getting to play the next one, and yet they felt so different. They felt alike but yet felt so different at the same time. Wipeout 2097, yes, it did have better graphics. It had a darker vibe to it. The graphics were a lot smoother. The handling just felt better, and the collision detection was definitely on point. At least you didn't completely scuff or stop dead when you hit a barrier. You would just scrape and you'd see the sparks fly. So it was definitely a lot more realistic. The only way you'd stop is if you hit a barrier or a wall head on, which did, to be fair, happen quite a lot. You were still getting familiar with the controls, because it was very, very different from playing normal racing games. And as I was still getting used to and familiar with the controls on the PlayStation itself, let's just say it took a while. I still, even for that point on, for a couple of months, I still struggled to master the demos here because of the handling, especially with these games. But I could not get over how good Wipeout 2097 was. Definitely one of the best games on this disc, and like I said, it's one of the greatest racing games of all time. For me personally, I still believe that this is the greatest Wipeout game in the entire series, hands down. I just think that the vibe about this is way better than any of the other games that came before it or even after it. Very, very cool. The track layouts and designs in the full game were really, really cool. I just love the soundtrack. It's epic. Yeah, it's an absolute classic. There's nothing really I can say about it that's bad at all. The colours, the textures, just the atmosphere about the game and this demo alone was just mind blowing. And like I said, I couldn't get over the visual detail that I was seeing in some of these demos. And the fact is that I was only getting to play the PlayStation around this time for the first time ever, and you were getting to witness all of these interesting experiences. It just blew my mind. Now, I was 14 years old at the time, like I wasn't a child, but still, because I hadn't witnessed anything like this up to that point, I was so used to playing games on the likes of older consoles with the Mega Drive, the Sega Master System, the Super Nintendo, and while yeah, they were cool, but nothing prepared me for what I was about to see here, and these games just stood out an absolute mile. That's why I have so many fond memories of it, because that particular instance alone, when I got to play it, is probably probably my greatest ever experience ever in video games, because I did not expect what I was about to see. I remember getting goosebumps literally all over and just feeling so excited, just like a little child again, just waiting for the next demo, or even getting to replay the game that I just played because I wanted to try it again to do better. That'll tell you the impact it really had on me. And as we all know, the first two Wipeout games, and even with the earlier series in general, would be a massive cultural phenomenon in the clubbing scene, as this, alongside of the evolution of the PlayStation itself during those early years, would really have a massive impact on societal influences and features. Because like with the club scene being at a massive all-time high, you would often have videos or screens with videos of Wipeout playing in the background, even the soundtracks and so forth. It just had that unique vibe that fitted perfectly with the whole social culture of the time. There really was nothing else like it, and there'll never be anything like it again. In many ways, when you think about it, it was a reflection of its time, but it was the perfect game to hit at the perfect time. We don't see that today, and like I said, we'll never see it again. The Formula 1 demo, I have to say, is arguably my most favourite game on this demo disc itself. Now that doesn't take away from the fact of all the other games that we witness here. While there was only 4 games, and it was quite low compared to some other CDs that you usually see out there, but the games that were here were really, really good. But having played games like the Wipeout games, playing Destruction Derby, and playing other games of different calibers, genres, yes, they had left an impact. You had so much variety with the demo discs alone, and that wasn't even coupled with the games that my mate had with Resident Evil, Time Commando, there was Tomb Raider, there was Shockwave Assault. But for me, the demos left as much of an impact as any of the full games themselves. But when I got to play, even I say the Wipeout games, but then when I got to play Formula 1, that was just the icing on the cake for me. Because yes, the games I'd seen before it, fantastic, excellent, something that I'd never witnessed before. But Formula 1, I was familiar with it because I'm a fan of the sport. I grew up watching it always on a Sunday afternoon with my brothers and even friends and family members. You used to watch it while you were waiting for your dinner on a Sunday evening. It'd always be on TV. You'd always hear the roars of the engines and listening to Murray Walker commentating, and you'd even be familiar with the tracks, like say the Nürburgring here, which was in this demo, and even hearing the names of some of the iconic drivers, because you were roughly familiar with them at the time. And then to hear everything being called out, and just to have even really cool music in the background. But for me, it was just the level of detail. Like out of all of the games that I played at that point, like even including Wipeout or Wipeout 2097, Formula 1 for me was the best looking game I'd seen of any of the demos on any of the discs that I played. It was just incredible. And even looking back, it still is a very, very good looking game today. Mind you, even if you decide to play the game with emulation, where you can scale up the graphics and the visuals somewhat, it makes a great game look even better, which you'd think to yourself that was impossible, but it does. But for me, it was the authenticity around the game. It was the sound effects. It was just the level of detail with the cars, because they looked like real life examples of Formula 1 cars that you would have seen on TV or in real life. But the sound effects, those engines, those engine noises, the sounds, the sense of speed it gave you was just exceptional. I was speechless. I can't say anything else other than that, because I was so familiar with it, but at the same time I was so blown away by it, because I couldn't believe that a game could be so realistic and be so reflective of real life. This was the closest thing to real life that I'd ever seen at that point in a video game. There was nothing else like it. There really wasn't. And the fact is that I absolutely love racing games, because I just love cars in general. This really was the icing on the cake. It was just exceptional. The handling was fantastic. Yeah, I did struggle with the controls, I will admit, because when you're playing something new like that for the first time, and considering playing all of the other games before it, they all have different control schemes and methods, and they all have different ideas of how they feel, the look they play. So when you're jumping from one game to the next, and especially when you're new to playing it for the first time, let's just say that it's a bit overwhelming and it can be very confusing. But to me, I did not give a damn. I did not care. I was just more interested in seeing what else was there, what else could I play next, and even getting to play the demos, what else could I do to try and possibly break the game, which I did try in this demo after a few attempts. You'd be trying to take shortcuts, cutting across the grass, or wherever you had like S-curves or sharp hairpins or whatever. You'd be trying to overtake the opponents, and unfortunately you crash into a few people here and there, but that just comes with the territory, because you were just having fun with the experience. Like, I couldn't get over this. For me, this demo was just exceptional. Yes, there was only 4 games, 3 of them were playable, 1 of them was just a video demo, but it was as good as anything that I played up to that point. In fairness, it really was. was. Like, this game will always hold massive ground with me in terms of the impact it definitely had on me, because like I said, I had never played a video game that felt as close to real life ever as I did with this game. And to make things even more intriguing is that for that time I genuinely didn't believe or could believe that this was actually possible until I was seeing it in person. That'll tell you how crazy it was, and even still is today when I think about it. And as recording this video, that is almost 30 years ago. Yes, the PlayStation had been out well over a year before I'd managed to play it for the first time, but it still didn't matter about the impact it left on me, because from the point on of playing all of these games, and especially these demos, that was it. I was instantly hooked. I didn't want to play anything else. I didn't really want to know about anything else. All I wanted to do was just play more of this, which I would get to do so. But yeah, it just really was exceptional. I can't really describe it in a way without kind of going back over what, like I've said, but it's one of those instances that you nearly need to be there for yourself to really witness what was going on. It was just a very, very unique time. It was very, very cool. I can't fault it. I can't even deny it. It is what it is. It was just exceptional for what was there. I just couldn't get over it. It was a very, very cool time, and quite possibly, like I said, probably the best ever experience I've ever had playing video games on any system, because again, I was new to it. I did not expect anything about it. The PlayStation to me was still new. I had heard about it, you'd seen videos or ads about it on TV, but you didn't really understand it. But it wasn't until you were there in person and getting to play it for the first time, and with these demos being among that first catalogue of games that were there, that my mate had gotten that Christmas, it really was something else, because I didn't expect it to be as good as it was. My mind was completely blown. And even when I went back home the next day trying to explain that to my brothers and some of my other friends, because they had never witnessed the PlayStation, they didn't understand it either. It got to a point that they had to experience it for themselves to really fully understand how good these things were. Yeah, just mind blowing. Something else. Some of the best memories I've ever had with video games. I'll never forget it. I'll always cherish it. And this is one of the best demos that you could possibly play that was ever released on the magazine, in my opinion. Even though there's only 4 games there, they're among some of the best games that were ever released on the system. But still, this is just one of many memories and even demos that were released, which I will be covering in future videos. And if you want to see other ones that I have already covered previously, you can check out this playlist on screen. And as always, keep those gaming memories alive.